Welcome back to the Pop Culture Graveyard Podcast. I am Hollis. With me, as always, is Dave. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Hollis.
Before we jump into the film, I just want to let everyone know that Dave and I are rocking the same PCG designs on our shirts. Slightly different. He's wearing, is that the gray?
I'm on brown.
He's on brown. I'm on blue. But somehow we're in sync.
The WGBH Boston Tribute PCG shirt available at dave.threadless.com.
Yes.
Check the link below for YouTube watchers.
Yep. Part of the PCG collection available on dave.threadless.com. But Dave was saying when we saw each other, Dave was saying we should be on the Olympic team for PCG. We'd be the cutters.
Yeah. And we'd win.
Of that event. Yeah, we would win. So I'm very excited. This week, we're tackling an old favorite of mine, and it is the downbeat comedy, Fatso. Kind of a cult film. It is from 1980, and as Dave and I always say, decades bleed into the next decade for a few years. Even though this film is from 1980, it's very much a 1970s film.
I thought of the same thing. I was like, oh, 1980, that's a 70s movie.
That's right. It stars Dom DeLuise, who is fantastic in this. I put it to you, this is Dom DeLuise's best performance.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, he's being serious. Where can you actually catch Dom DeLuise being serious? Like, what films is he serious in?
Yeah, usually if he's serious, it's a faux seriousness played for comedic effect.
Yeah.
He is known as a brilliant comedian, which he is. And Dave and I love him in supporting roles in things like Cannonball Run, and things like every Burt Reynolds film, The End.
Yeah, he's the original reason. Dom DeLuise is the first person to get people to watch the credits.
Yeah, all the outtakes and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, he stars as Dom. So he's not really acting. He plays a lead character who is dangerously overweight by the standards of his time. Speaking of which, you're laughing because you know where I'm headed. Perhaps the biggest takeaway from this film is that the lead character, whose biggest problem was his unhealthy relationship with food, personified by the film's title, Fatso, is a derogatory term for an overweight person, by today's standards, is not obese.
Svelte.
What is he, a large? Like, when this film opens, if you could whisper into the lead character's ear that in present day, 2024, shirts will routinely be made in double and triple XL, he might just chill on a couch with the pizza for the rest of this film. He is not heavy by today's standards.
Yeah, they bring in people from Chubby Checkers who do fit the bill.
Mm-hmm.
But he is definitely below. I mean, it's funny. It threw me off. I was like, is his family concerned that he may get fat?
Right, because his cousin Sal, who is really, his death is the inciting incident of this whole film, he is morbidly obese. Even today, he would be considered that.
He looked like he was buried in a grand piano case. Like, his coffin didn't fit in his grave.
I love that you're calling back Robert Hughes from the Guinness Book of World Records, who was buried in a piano case.
Yeah, it became sort of the standard of like, that's when someone's giant, they're buried in a piano crate. Yeah.
Right. Sal, to double down on his size, he played the tuba, which he sort of dwarfed in the picture he's holding the tuba in. Before we go any further, I just want to bring up that this is directed by the late, great Anne Bancroft. It was her directorial debut and sadly the only film she ever directed. Anne Bancroft also wrote the film, which would be impressive by itself. And she's equally impressive in the role of Antoinette, Dom's sister, who is so concerned about his weight. She doesn't want him to turn out like Dom's favorite cousin, Sal, who passed away, that she makes an appointment with him to go to see a doctor, Dr. Schwartzman, the diet doctor, who Sal had an appointment for, and he couldn't.
He didn't go.
He didn't go. He blew it off, and he got a pizza.
He went to the pizza place. Little other interesting information about Anne Bancroft, little sci-fi info. Anne Bancroft, mother of Max Brooks, author of World War Z.
Yep. By the way, World War Z. Why the
Yeah.
fuck can't Brad Pitt's wife stop calling him on the phone during a zombie apocalypse? And why the fuck doesn't he put it on vibrate if he's going to
I
go
got
out and do these? Anyway,
I'm always fine. Like, oh, they're making a movie out of the book. They're making a movie out of, and I always go, it's fine. It's fine. World War Z is one where I'm like, oh, it's not fine. It's such a good book, and it's the movie just does not work.
yeah,
I have a Mel Brooks joke with Matt. I may have told it already on this. I don't know, but
bring it.
it's a joke I wrote myself. Um,
Mm.
so because Anne Bancroft's husband is Mel Brooks,
In
and
fact, if I may, this movie, Fatso, was the first movie produced by Mel Brooks under the auspices of Brooks Films.
right, Brooks Films, The Fly
Yeah, Cronenberg's
is a
The
Brooks.
Fly.
Yeah, yeah.
And The Elephant Man, which Mel Brooks
Ooh,
did, which is not,
I mean that's a
his
nice
normal.
spread, right? Elephant Man, The Fly, Fatso.
Oh,
That's pretty good.
wonderful.
Not bad at all. So Max Brooks finishes writing World War Z, and I just pictured this in my head. It's not a joke, but he gives a copy to his dad. A couple days later, his dad comes into his bedroom, smacks it down on the nightstand, and goes, "That wasn't funny at all."
That's good. Yeah.
But Max Brooks is pretty funny. He does lectures about because his
He's
book is actually about survival and
right,
society, and
right. He's
yeah,
got to be funny with those genes.
he's
Something's
absolutely
got to
funny.
get
He's
through.
absolutely funny, and I'm glad that we worked our way backwards from Anne Bancroft and never referred to her as. This film was made by Mel Brooks's wife.
Oh no, God
Yeah,
no. This film, like some of the films we've covered, it never really found its audience. A
Siskel and
lot of
Ebert didn't help.
no, Cisco and Ebert hated it. Well, I think Ebert was triggered,
Okay,
if I
reasonable.
may. But yeah, I think they hurt some bad reviews hurt the film. But I think basically the reviewers didn't know what to do with it. It found its audience slowly on home video and on cable, like a lot of great films that fall through the cracks. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is, a masterpiece, but tonally, from a subtle comedy place, this film is really, really unique. The
Yeah.
comedy that comes out of this film comes from a very natural place.
The uniqueness of this film is its demise. That's why it wasn't popular. It was simply
Yes.
too unique. It didn't follow the formula. It did a whole lot of "you can't do that" and did it anyway. And it was probably doomed from the beginning. You can't say, "Hey, here's a new way of doing it," and have the masses go, "Yay, fun!" They're like,
Also,
"I'm uncomfortable."
yeah. Also, I think Dom DeLuise, who is pitch perfect in this movie, even the casting of him, the entire movie seems like the supporting cast is like the Mel Brooks All Stars. You
Yeah,
have some of
it
the guys you've
does.
seen in a lot of his films: Rudy
Yuck,
DeLuca,
yuck,
Ron
yuck,
Parry,
guys. Yeah.
yeah, Robert Costanzo, Michael Lombard, Richard Caron. Sal Viscuso as Vito at the at the funeral has one of my favorite lines in the movie. He's bawling and he said, "Take me with you, Sally boy."
He won't let go of the flowers,
Won't
that
let
guy.
go. And I mean that
Yeah.
the comedy that is wrenched from the funeral scenes, just the wake and the funeral, just the bawling and the over the top, capturing an Italian American family, a lot like Moonstruck did,
Oh,
except
come
that
on. This movie makes Moonstruck look like Yentl.
yeah.
I mean, the Italian is on 11.
Uh,
It's insane
yeah.
how fired up the Italian is in this.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, the
Yeah.
volume is turned way up. But I think that's the casting of it. It's a very small film. It's got an indie film sensibility. And so I just don't think it made a big splash because it wasn't the least bit Hollywood. But it existed in a world where, routinely John Cassavetes films were doing well. There were audiences for smaller films, more downbeat films. I mentioned Harry and Tonto when we were doing
Oh, right,
uh,
yeah.
Please Stand By. And, there are films like that, Going in Style. there are smaller films that did well, but I think this one, just because of the subject matter, it was about
Yeah.
something maybe people didn't want to talk about.
It's not just small, it's small, and you're right, it's hard to choose careful words. It's off-putting to people, um, because it's a lot to ask, like, it's small and it's unique, so you'll need to give it a little room to enjoy it. Oh, it's also a bit depressing. Oh, it's also, it's it's a little, it's a lot to ask of the viewer. Not too far into it, I thought, I might tell Hollis I don't wanna do this one. The Wake, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh, the Wake was killing me. There's screaming, crying, and screaming, rescued by Dom DeLuise stepping out to get people a glass of water that he never gets because he's just going to snack.
And what I loved is at the wake, Dom DeLuise is a mess. He's falling apart. He's crying. The second he puts a piece of food in his mouth, he stops crying. He gets
Mm,
caught up with the bread and the sauce, and he puts a little bit of the best is when he sticks a fork in the bread and he dips it in the sauce and
he
then dips it in the
he
Parmesan.
wets the sponge side of the bread, yeah, and the funny thing is, right there, I'm thinking, "That guy knows how to run his plate."
Yeah, another great line.
My
He's creative with food.
my friends and I have been saying, "Run your plate," as long as I can remember. I was only reminded by rewatching the movie, or
That
I really hadn't fully seen it. I'd only seen scenes from it, that we got it. We may have gotten it from we might have gotten it from Phil Casera's granddad might have said it, who knows?
Yeah, it's a very real thing. Yeah, there's a line in this where his little brother is eating his breakfast with an omelet and he cuts him like four big pieces of bread to go with it. And he's not using the bread. And he's like, you're 32 years old, Junior. You don't know how to run your plate.
Beautiful, yeah.
And Junior's great. He's like, you love bread. I like bread.
I gotta
Oh,
watch my figure.
yeah.
Um, we had a thing called a work plate. You'd get an entree that had like something that needed manipulating. Maybe it was on the bone, or maybe it was a seafood thing where it has to come out of the shell. And we would say to the waiter, "Can I get a work plate?" Meaning, can I get an empty plate to keep next to my plate that I might
Wow.
be able to move some stuff aside,
A
or that's what.
staging area.
Yeah, like it's a staging area. We used to call it a work plate, and we said work plate, and we said, you need to work on how you run your plate. You're not running your plate.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are all kinds of great lines from this. Junior, get the honey. Get the honey, Junior.
And
Like,
I was get get the honey, the deep,
get
like he
get
sounds like
the honey. Yeah, and there's
yeah,
like the guy always sounds like he has honey in the back of his throat. That
it
guy,
does.
Richard Karen. You know what's funny? Richard Karen and the other guy who are the Chubby Checkers. After this film, they dropped a bunch of weight. Like you can see pictures on
Oh, that's
IMDb.
nice.
They
That's good to
thinned
hear.
out.
And there's a lot of lines, and a lot of those lines could be the could be the name of our episode. My vote is for, at one point it got so frantic, the Jew bit his hand. He thought it was Oliver.
Our first 100 word. Oh, that's terrible. That did not age well. Um,
Being story being told by David Horowitz, everyone.
yeah. I don't know. I think we got to either go run your plate or get the honey, Junior.
Yeah, I'm gonna go run your plate.
Run it. All right,
You
then.
gotta learn how
That's
to run your
cool.
plate, or you don't know how to run your plate. We'll check it out. We'll
Yeah,
check it out.
you don't know how to run your plate.
That lasagna looked very good. The lasagna he made for his little brother. Well, the omelet he
Yeah,
made for his brother looked good.
it's all good. He's
The
a creative eater. He's great with food. He thinks
His
of ways
food,
to eat
yes.
things.
In the bakery and stuff, I didn't
Mm.
like the shots of the food, didn't do it for me. I found it all very unappetizing. I think it was just a matter of the old film, and
Well, you
I
know
thought
what's
the
funny?
television food was more appetizing than the food in the
Yeah,
bakery.
there's a great scene where he's in bed and he's trying not to think about this girl he has a crush on, and he kind of is tossing and turning, so he turns on the TV and of course it's a cavalcade of commercials that are all about food.
Did you
It,
recognize any of the commercials?
I felt like one or two, definitely towards the end, the Italian one.
The
The
folliculi.
yeah,
It's
for
like,
sure.
da da Santa, sweet potato
Yeah.
pie. Da, da.
Yep.
That
And
was an
the
old commercial that I remembered. Yeah.
yep. And the strawberry one, the one about baking with strawberries and
Yeah,
the
that one has the Nutcracker Suite is playing in the background.
oh yeah.
And yeah. And television was like there was a lot of food commercials. Panning a stack of pancakes, panning Linzer tarts, you know?
That was very much TV commercials back then. And iced tea. It seemed like everything was a
Yeah.
commercial for iced
It was
tea.
all iced tea and Stellador breadsticks. That's all there was.
It's pathetic because if that scene happened today, his character would be fine because it would be all medicine and
Yeah.
cars. That's it. They want you to take your Flonase and go drive your Mazda.
Yeah.
Like that's all commercials are today. You mentioned the bakery. This is a great NYC film. It's the Manhattan equivalent to Moonstruck, landmark wise, because they live at 72 Bleecker Street. He says their address at one point. And we see the turnaround of the FDR. We see the cage at West 4th. We see a lot of food porn in the form of the Italian bakeries that are no longer with us, a lot of them. And then the St. Anthony's Church Bazaar is exactly like so many other church bazaars. I don't care what borough you go to. So it's like, this is a wonderful slice of
There's,
vanished NYC.
there's a nice sausage and
Ah,
peppers wedge being made
forget
in
it.
that
Even the
in
hot
that
dog guy,
church scene. Yeah.
you can't get a hot dog like
That
that
was
anymore.
that was a Sabrett truck. He just went mustard. He didn't go no onions.
Classic. Because he went a
Yeah.
few. He got like 2 or 3.
He had several. Yeah.
So his love interest in this is played by Candace Azara. How great is Candace Azara?
So great that I was like, huh, I wonder why Candace Azara didn't go on to do 12 things. Because she really, I'm like, I know her. I didn't. I didn't know her. Do you know anything that she did?
Yeah, she plays Rose Monaghan Capuletti in the 1983 film Easy Money. She's Rodney Dangerfield's wife in that.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
So perfect. The great thing about her, she's eternally youthful. You know, she's got an ingenue quality that the years cannot dim. You know, she was 35 in this movie. Dom is 47, by the way, and he's playing 40. So, but he looks very youthful in this. It works. She's still with us, Candace Azara, and she still has a youthful glow. And as we know, Dave, age alone cannot make you old.
That's right. And the movie ends with a series of portraits of Dom's family. And I love that they don't do anything to her to show the passage of time. She stays exactly the same throughout.
Yeah.
And I'm like, she would.
And Dom's weight continues to fluctuate in the
Yeah, yeah.
pictures, which is great.
Which
He's
is
bigger, smaller,
fine.
bigger, which is fine. And
Yeah.
that's at the heart of this film is
Yeah.
acceptance. It's not a film about being fat. It's a film about being okay with how you look and how you feel.
Yeah. It's also a film about moderation. There's a famous scene in it where a nurse delivers a list of the things he cannot eat. I believe it even made it onto one of the movie posters.
It is a great movie poster. It says,
Yeah.
do not eat. And then there's a list of all of the foods behind his face getting the news. It's perfect.
I love some of them are like the idea of like, oh, I can't eat that. Oh no. Dried fruit. I'm like, okay, there was a very different sense of treats at the time.
Well, Dave,
That's
dried fruit was his fallback. She got rid of cake. She got rid of pies.
Yeah, he was thinking,
fruit.
it's fine. I'll eat some figs. Son of a bitch. Yeah. But it brings me to a point that I make to people often because I didn't have a weight problem. I just had an eating unhealthily problem. I was either eating McDonald's or chicken Parmesan Heroes. Those are my two things that I ate. And I would just alternate back and forth between them.
Probably at 3 a.m. after drinking.
After bartending, really, but often after drinking. And then when I wasn't eating out, I was eating tuna fish sandwiches on white bread. But here's the thing. When I said, I think I might eat more healthily, several of the people that I said that to said, oh, you got to do this, this, and this. You got to go here, here, and here. And all of them were like, just would be a leap for me. And I decided that I wasn't going to go to McDonald's anymore and I was going to go to Subway instead. And when I told people that, they said, "You're a fool. There's no difference between Subway and McDonald's. They're both crap. And you're just switching where you're getting your crap from."
Tell that to Jared. Actually,
Yeah,
don't
that
tell him
doesn't have
anything.
the
He's in
right,
jail right
yeah,
now.
that doesn't have the right ring to it
It
anymore.
doesn't. It means
No.
something else.
But the thing is I did go to Subway and then when I first started going to Subway, I was like, turkey, lettuce, tomatoes, onions, sweet peppers, double meat. And I was like, double meat isn't necessary, single meat. I kept scaling down the meat and scaling up the veggies. And then I was like, okay, now I might as well be getting these sandwiches somewhere that makes better sandwiches. And I moved on. But because I was doing it in a progression, like I was used to waiting online in front of this 3 cash registers. I was used to getting my sandwich quickly and walking out. I was used to it being wrapped in something I could unwrap and eat it over. You tell me to switch to getting my food from like Caravan of Dreams, some vegetarian spot.
Which is a health food restaurant in NYC.
Yeah, you've completely disrupted how I get food. And now I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. And I quickly go back to my old ways. But Subway was the perfect middle ground.
Mm.
And it worked, and now I have McDonald's once or twice a year, probably two or three times a year. One of those two or three times I usually regret it.
Yeah. You make an interesting point though, because a lot of times it's not even the food itself. It's the trappings. And you have to feel like you're getting away with something. It has to feel like a junk treat. And there's something about the wrapping and the kind of like you're a
Absolutely.
cop on a stakeout. There's something about it that, is it's hitting you at the same place. And you probably get enough of the dopamine that it's a good fallback.
Yeah, totally works. Which is
Yeah.
why I thought it was great when those fast food places were picking up that Beyond Beef. I was hoping that might help because
Mhm.
you go to McDonald's, you're already buying a chunk of meat between 2 pieces of bread that doesn't taste much like meat. Why bother making it out of meat? But anyway,
Um,
so he ends up like sort of ignoring. And why? Because his mind and his heart are filled with his love with this woman he met. It's funny, they didn't really drive it home. It was just a couple of scenes. The scene where he's trying to get dressed up and his little brother is saying, "You lost weight. How did you lose weight?" And he's saying, "I don't know."
it's great. He's pulling at his pants. He's lost at least 2, maybe 3 sizes. He didn't do anything. He wasn't trying. He said even, I wasn't even trying to lose weight. He was just happy being with Lydia, being with this woman, and they were out doing things. That's one of the things that you find when you get into a good relationship, is that whoever you're with wants to do things.
Mhm.
I say it that way because if I had my druthers, I'd never do anything. But it's good for me. It's good to be taken out of your comfort zone. And you see him, he's dancing with her, they're walking everywhere. It's a healthier lifestyle when you're happy.
And he used to say, "I could use a little something, maybe a cannoli." Now he says, "I could use a little something, maybe a little kiss."
Yeah.
And it's really how and it's, it's cliche. I eat to help with the loneliness. I eat, what is it? My doctor says I eat my anger along with a lot of hot dogs, something like that
Yeah.
from
Oh yeah.
Stripes. I
Yeah.
forget John Candy's line.
That's right.
But yeah, he meets a woman who fills the spot that food had been filling. Not entirely. I love that they both like she loves food too. She has her favorites from the Chinese place.
Yeah. Is it something like Chinese meatball with narcissus bulbs
Oh
or
yeah. Is that what it is? Narcissus bulbs?
You know what I like about it though, because we're talking about how him being with her, his happiness has fueled his weight loss without him even realizing it. But he's very careful later when the shit hits the fan to catch himself and be like, look at what I'm doing. I'm trying to blame that sweet girl for me falling off the wagon and eating something. And then later he's crying and he's like, look what you did to your son, mom. Look at your fat baby now, you know? And he's like, oh, I'm doing it again. I'm blaming my mother. Like he pulls himself back from blaming others. It's all about him. It's a personal choice. And the older you get, Dave, the more you realize everything is a personal choice. Things don't happen to you. You simply react to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'd be surprised where you hear it. You'll hear it from the Buddhists, you know, you'll hear it from Bill Burr, the comedian. He said, oh, you know, I felt like once I realized it was me, it was a lot easier. You know, he does a lot of comedy about how like and I know it's me. Mostly what I'm dealing with is working on me. Like,
yeah.
And it's funny because if he was somebody else, it might be seen as like woke comedy. Like, I was blaming my wife, I was blaming my kids, but it's me. Yeah, Dom DeLuise is very self-aware in this, Dom, which is nice.
Yeah.
And his mother, he would have been in his right to blame his mother. His mother was putting a piece of buttered bread in his mouth before she'd even cleaned the pee off his face. The movie opens with Dom's little brother peeing this ridiculous stream in his face for way too long.
Yeah, the credits run over some exposition regarding the childhood upbringing of the main character and his favorite cousin, Sal. And when the film opens in earnest, where it's Sal's funeral, but there's a montage of all these childhood moments that are punctuated by food. And the grossest of which is, I didn't put it together till now, but that is Ron Carey's character, Junior, peeing in his face. Although his, could it be? Yeah, his mother gave birth to two boys who died after Junior, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So it could have been one of them peeing.
Which was not uncommon for a woman of her time. And that collection of scenes is something bad happens, give him a piece of bread, something with butter all over it, something good happens, give him this, something bad happens, give him this, nothing's happening, give him this. They're just handing the kid food over and over and over again.
And that was the way. And I grew up, my mom is Sicilian. It's the way. Her math, as far as how many people were coming, was a pound of pasta per person. Because they're going to want seconds and hopefully thirds. And oh my God, look at him. He cleaned 2 plates. This is my favorite. Bring that friend over again. Like, it's just, everything's punctuated with food. And then after, like, my wife laughs at me because after dinner, I'm like, I think I'll make some coffee. Like, you know, it's late and it's like, it's not, but I just grew up that way. Then you have the dessert and dessert is not, oh, what's for dessert? It's what isn't for dessert. There are 10 things on the table because some people don't like chocolate, and other people, they don't like fruit, and you like pie.
Yeah, can you imagine going to like an Italian person's house and them say, oh, it's dessert time. What do you have? Apple pie. You would absolutely like fall off your chair leaning forward like,
no.
And?
Yeah. And that's why Anne Bancroft as Annette is pitch perfect. And, you know, this is coming off of Sal's death, but she tried to save Sal and didn't. And that's why she's so maniacal about saving Dom, because she's even closer to Dom. They run the DiNapoli card shop together. And she says something like, Dommy, you're good people. The good people are the fat people, and fat people die young. It's crazy. I grew up in a house where everyone was always dieting. Outside of me, I was this little skinny kid, and my sisters were dieting, my mother was dieting, my dad would occasionally cut out some stuff. Being around that, you know, it's almost like the family is dieting. Like, like even if you are not, I found it hard to get food.
Yeah, that's what happens. Yeah, the cupboards start to get weird. You don't find the usual things that you were used to finding when you go looking.
And the cupboards are chained in this film, because it's all part of the Chubby Checker program. And did you realize who played Mrs. Goodman, who turned him on to the Chubby Checkers weight loss group?
I don't know who that was.
That is Estelle Reiner, Carl Reiner's wife, Rob Reiner's
Ah.
mom, years before her "I'll have what she's having" line in
Oh,
When Harry Met Sally.
I do recognize her.
I don't know how she did it because she looks older here.
Wow. Ah, good for her. That's a couple of good roles right there.
Yeah. The Chubby Checkers themselves, that whole thing, it's based on obviously a Weight Watchers thing. The beginning of the meeting, I love the visual joke of Chubby Checkers photos on the wall. There's a before and an
And
after.
after of Chubby Checker, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like svelte in the second one, and they want us to believe that he founded this or was their patron saint. But its whole tenet is all around like, taking the sting out of the word fat. All the members say that they're fat and they accept it and they're like they have to battle it, but it's very much based on a kind of self-loathing that our character already has when he goes there. It's no way to live, and we see in the breakdown scene where him and his two chubby checkers go crazy and kind of like empty the food out of the entire apartment on a binge eating.
Yeah, that's the scene. That's the scene that carries on 20, 30, 40 years later. Everyone remembers, have you ever sucked the jelly out of a jelly donut
Right, and
and
refilled it with
refilled it
chocolate
with chocolate
swirl.
swirl? Yeah,
Oh God.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
the scene. It's that where they all succumb to their weakness.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
Dave, you know why this is such a great film is that you can substitute liquor in those cabinets in that fridge. You can put
Mhm.
cocaine in that cabinet in that fridge. There's something about how fat people or overweight people or stocky people, as he calls himself at one point, have always been fair game for people to make fun of or say rude things about or simply point at or sneer at. Another reason why this film, I think, found a hard time reaching its audience is because, on the one hand, it is unhealthy to have a certain amount of visceral fat around your organs and your arteries and but at the same time, some people are just predisposed larger and can still live a very happy, productive, fairly healthy life at a certain weight that would be, deathly to you.
Yeah, and we also know, thanks to the internet, I mean, and other things, but, like, you can be very big and run around on stage playing the flute for 3 hours.
Yeah.
You can be very big and do 3 back handsprings in a row.
Hmm.
Like, there are some people who people would say, "Oh, Dave's in much better shape than them," and they'd be wrong.
When you said that, I thought of Fred Berry from What's Happening. He was with the Lockers. He's a great dancer. He could do
Yeah,
handsprings. He could do whatever.
but the main point is that there's something about that particular addiction, that particular foible that is fair game for attack. It's also weirdly, like we were saying, people are willing to go see a movie, The Lost Weekend, um, uh,
Right.
you know,
Leaving Las Vegas.
Leaving Las Vegas is an excellent example. People can watch that closely and yet make it food, and people are sort of pulling away from it. It's a very unfair differentiation.
Yeah. I used to do a comedy series, Teacher's Lounge, and my friend and I filmed 4 episodes of it when I was still a very heavy drinker. I think at my largest, I was something like 189, Dave. And at my height, I don't know how I managed to walk around functioning and whatever because I'm only 5'8", but it was so close to 200 that it scared the life out of me. And
Oh,
I got really healthy because I was so bloated from the drinking and other things. And so it's funny, we filmed these 4 episodes, and then there was like a 6-month layoff while we got, funding to do the rest of them. Then we filmed 6 of them, and the weight loss is ridiculous. And the funny thing is, one of the last one we filmed, the last one we showed, was this episode with Judah Friedlander, I think we did it with as the guest star. And I asked my friend in it, like, I'm thinking about getting in shape. Anything I should do to work out, right? And then the next episode was all my thinner ones. So it's like funny that that bookend. But anyway, I say all of that just to say that I know how hard it can be. And I'm vegan. I work out every day. I've been healthy for over a dozen years now. I would hate to go back, you
Yeah,
know?
I actually don't know. I actually don't know. I've been within 10 pounds of my weight for 30 years.
Mm,
Almost literally never considered what I ate. People, when do you eat? I eat when I'm hungry. But I also eat when I'm bored and there's good food around. I just have a metabolism.
that just sounds like you won the genetic lottery.
That's what it is. It's what it is. Now granted, getting older, I
Hmm.
might have started to, a little more sedentary, start to put on a little more weight. But I moved to Colorado next to a bunch of trails. Now I'm hiking and mountain biking. And
That should offset it.
yeah. And I think that that may have also happened when I was like, McDonald's makes me feel crappy. It didn't make me fat because of this metabolism of mine, McDonald's and Subway and chicken Parmesan heroes and all these things. They weren't making me fat. They just made me feel crappy.
Yeah. That's one of the falsehoods of all this heavy food. It purports to be filling, and it's simply not satisfying, a lot of it. And your insides don't know what to do with a lot of that stuff. Not to mention too much of it,
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
could still
It's
be hungry. That's something that we see, like, my wife and I will watch a character in a movie saying like, "Oh, I'm really thirsty. Can I have a soda?" And it's like, that soda is not going to satiate or slake your thirst. Just the opposite. It's going to make you want another soda. Like,
That's
have some
like saying,
fucking
"I'm really
water.
thirsty. Could I get a pixie stick?" It's actually very
Ah,
similar to that.
yeah.
But think about it, man. When I was 13 years old and we were like building a ramp and jumping it with our mongooses and
Mm.
trying to skateboard over it for hours and hours and hours and wiping out, covered in dust, and haven't had anything to drink for 6 hours. And yet we've been exerting ourselves, sweating. It's 90 degrees out. We would go into the store and there was rows and rows and rows of soda, of cola, of pop for all of our listeners around the different parts of the United
Around
States.
the
Yeah. There was nothing but carbonated flavored drinks. You could not buy a bottle of water. And had we said to the cashier, "Can I get a glass of water?" they would have looked at us like we were crazy.
Mm.
It just was unheard of.
Yeah, this was
Um,
before the rise of bottled water as a
yeah.
thing. You could get a quarter water, like the little colored
Ah,
waters of different, like orange or grape or whatever.
listeners, look for a song called Quarter Water by Richard Bacchus and the Luckiest Girls. Quarter Water.
Yeah.
Fantastic song.
It gets its name from the every bodega in New York or every small store would sell for a quarter these tiny drinks of,
It was
you
like a
know,
little
colored by food
semi-translucent.
additive.
Yeah, it was like food coloring and sugar.
Hmm.
It had one of those peel off, I think,
Metal.
tin
Yeah.
tops, and, it was like a little plastic hand grenade, and everybody called it quarter water. Yeah.
See,
Ah,
I'm
good
saying how
times.
bad it is, and I'm nostalgic.
Yeah,
I
we're
could go
both
for
like, "Oh, I could go for quarter water and a pixie
yeah.
stick." Um,
I'm gonna drink my quarter water with a pixie stick straw. So you're aware that Fatso began as a short film because I sent you a link to the short film. Did you watch it at all?
I did not. I felt as if I had seen the culmination. I had seen
Hmm.
the end result, so
Yeah.
I didn't go back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Did you?
that's fine. Yeah, well, you know me.
Yeah.
I had to, but
Completist.
yeah, but you know what? We're at exactly the same spot because you didn't miss anything. And what's odd is just how faithful it is to the finished film. The only big difference is that it features Doris Roberts playing Dom's sister, Annette, instead of the
Mhm.
director, Anne Bancroft. And the other thing is, until you see the short film, you don't realize how necessary the soundtrack is in the final film. You really missed the
Mm,
soundtrack. It was just like, it seems like a NYU student film. It's black and white. It's pretty cool, but it really is bare bones.
yeah, the more we do this, I think the more I realize that how hard these things lean on music.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
everything.
There's some beautiful stuff too about family. Of course, Italian movie and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed when Dom tells his little brother he's getting married or that he's going to propose. Ron Carey, his reaction to finding out his big brother is going to propose to his girlfriend is so sweet. It's a combination of he's so proud, but he also is like there's a sense of loss.
Yeah.
And yeah,
The
and he hugs
DiNapoli
his
boys. They have
yeah,
a
and they,
whole song and everything. They march
they
around the
dance around the
DiNapoli
ba ba
boys. Ba,
ba
ba,
ba
ba.
ba ba. Yeah.
So they've been a unit. They've been bachelors together all this time. And
Mhm.
so it's the end of an era.
Yeah,
And he's
and you get
happy for
that
his
from
brother, but he's wistful.
Ron Carey. He transmits that in that just by burying his head in his brother's stomach.
Such a
And
great actor, Dave. We sang his praises in the Barney Miller episode.
yeah, he is very good. He does a
You
great
know,
job of getting angry too with the hubcaps.
oh, so good. He's on a slow boil for a lot of the
Mhm.
film, and
Yeah.
Dom pushes him over once or twice, and it's great. There's something we should at least talk about. It's not quite a hole in the film, but it strains credibility, and it's just how much Dom freaks out about not being able to get Lydia on the phone.
It's quite the spiral.
It is quite the
Yeah.
spiral because they are totally like they could not be more of a unit. They are obviously in love. She
Mm.
and he are joined at the hip. There was a lovely series of montages of them getting closer and closer and closer. They've shared everything you can share. There's a great scene when it implies they're about to go further where he's like, "Are you a virgin?" And she goes, "Almost."
Yeah.
And so
They're so
they
honest with each other.
they're
It's really
so
good.
honest. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so they are very much a unit. And one busy signal, like she doesn't know you were going to propose that night. You
Yeah.
were going to see her, but and he can't get her. And yeah,
I
should
don't
he?
know how many nights it's been since they met. If you had to guess, 50, like a month and a half, something
Maybe.
like
Yeah,
that,
that sounds
right?
good.
So maybe he's called her every night for 50 nights
Hmm.
before. And said, what are we doing tonight? How about tonight? What are we doing tonight? And from the looks of it, they did something 6 or 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And this is the first time he's called and she's not there.
And this
Um,
is a time before even answering machines were in everyone's home. Like
which
you just
actually
miss
which
people.
which makes it a bigger plot problem because he shouldn't be this upset.
No.
But you can't, I don't know, how much time can you really spend unraveling like, oh, we need the audience to know that he's trying and trying and
Yeah.
trying. Like, I guess you could have done a like,
I think they should have made it a bigger event, like show him at a restaurant where she stood him up, have him then go to her door where she's not answering,
well,
have him
that's the thing.
make it a
It's not
quick
when you bring up these
montage.
problems; it's when you solve them so
I'm
quickly.
sorry.
No, no, no. But that's exactly it. Like that's all
Yeah,
it had to be.
that's all you
Like
needed to do.
instead of saying to his little brother, "Yeah, I'm gonna call her tonight, and I'm gonna ask her to meet me at the so and so," it should have been like, "Yeah, we have reservations at blah blah blah.
We've been waiting for 2 weeks to get these reservations.
Yeah,
It's a big
I'm,
night.
I'm leaving in an hour,"
Yeah,
and then he comes back. She wasn't there, and
yeah,
then he calls her, and there's no answer,
right.
and now it's a
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
Yeah, done.
So
Ah, could have had a lovely scene at blah 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 too.
but they needed him to fall off. Then there's a scene where he eats all this Chinese $40 worth of Chinese food himself,
Yeah.
Dave, which was a big deal back in 1980. That would cover barely two people today.
It was food for 5 people. I don't know what were they playing, like
Poker
canasta or
or something. Yeah,
poker? Okay, yeah. It was food for 5 people, maybe more.
it was a big
And he
Saturday night.
he ate it all. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was very similar to the earlier scene where he eats a slice of his nephew's birthday cake.
Yeah,
Where
Peony.
that makes no sense because he was at the bakery. He could have gotten a pie for himself, eaten that, and then, but whatever. We needed these things to happen, which is why she had to not answer the phone.
Yeah, and it has to establish his eating as a
Oh,
like
like a self-flagellation?
yeah, like there are like he's you know, you could be an overeat. He's not poor. He could be an overeater and he could buy the food he wants to overeat, but his overeating is causing him to hurt those outside of him. He ate Anthony's birthday cake, or he ate enough of Anthony's birthday cake that it was no good to use for the birthday anymore. He ate the poker game's Chinese food. He's he's hurting those around him.
I think also, Dave, it's his self-loathing turned outward. And the reason that he needed to eat that cake, that specific cake, and the reason he had to eat all their Chinese food is so that they could then yell at him and
You could
mirror back all the things he felt about himself and justify and reinforce his worldview.
Yeah, there you go. And you could call it a cry for help because that's what it ends up being, is because it draws everyone's attention. You could quietly eat yourself to death. He's eating himself to death, but occasionally sort of lashing out, which
Yeah.
is causing them to attack him, which might be for the better.
Yeah.
Um, really, none of their efforts to help him help. In the
No,
end, what helps him is falling in love
love
with
helps him. Lydia.
Lydia. Yeah.
Lydia says a wonderful thing to him because trying to get him out of bed after he's sick after the binge with the Chubby Checkers, she brings Lydia to his bedside, and he's like, I fell, I ate 2 times in 1 week, I binge eat, and she goes, oh, what did she say?
People fall.
Christ fell 3 times, and he was Christ.
A great line.
It's so good.
Yeah. I assume that related to that's like a known number of like carrying the cross.
Yes, he
He
fell a third
stumbled
time
3
with the
times. Yeah.
cross. Yeah.
Okay. My head made that connection
Yeah, it's the
despite
Stations of the Cross,
my
which are
Jewish upbringing.
yeah, no, these Stations of the Cross are known to every Catholic, uh,
You
or
know,
Christian, I should say, but
I figured it was a Stations of the Cross reference. I totally
yeah,
did. Yeah.
I grew up
Uh,
1st grade through 8th Catholic school. I was an altar boy. The central religious tenets that these 2 families of theirs share are very real. Yeah.
yeah. It's funny though because here I am, my dad's Jewish, my mom, I don't know, German Catholic, something. 2 great tastes that taste great together, the McDLT.
Uh,
But I remember me and my brothers, my mom would make baked potatoes, and me and my brothers would just take the baked potato, break it in half, and start eating it.
mm,
And my dad would say, "Oh, you're crazy. Give me that thing." And he would take it and he'd cut it open and he'd put a couple of slabs of butter inside. He was basically saying, "Come on, learn how to run your plate." He'd
yeah.
put a couple of slabs of butter inside and some sour cream and a bunch of salt. And he'd go, "Eat it
Oh,
now." And we were like, we don't want it like that. We
eat it
don't
now
want it.
so that you can't taste the potato itself.
Yeah. So we all learned to eat it with butter and salt and sour cream. And my dad literally, like, I don't know whether he saw a show or read an article or whatever, but at dinner one night we had the potatoes and the salt was going around, the butter was going around, and my dad said, "I'm sorry. You guys were more than happy to eat those potatoes with just a pinch of salt. I forced you to put everything on there that's going to give you heart disease, high blood pressure, and diabetes." Or not diabetes. He just said heart disease and high blood pressure. He's like, "I forced it on you, and now you love it." But he literally
What a
apologized
wonderful
for it.
arc for that guy.
He has a lot of great arcs. He has a lot of great
All
arcs.
right, you need to come up with his little logo. We're gonna
Just
stamp it on something.
I'm just gonna use Bob.
Whatever, that's
Okay.
fine. Just tweak it so that we
All
don't get
right. Yeah, I'll
arrested.
tweak it.
Because that guy applies to every episode.
Yeah. And he grew up in these places, these
Hmm.
moonstruck places and these
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
he's a neighborhood kid in the Bronx.
a wonderful thing about the human body and your taste buds. I've been vegan now over a dozen years. I was vegetarian for many years prior to that, off and on. A great thing that happens, much like the earth rebounds from all the crap we do to it if we leave it alone for a while, your palate returns. And the less crap you bombard it with, the more you can actually differentiate between foods and different tastes. And
Mhm.
like, I like very basic things and I like the taste of them. And like, I'm drinking black coffee, which doesn't sound like much, but that applies to everything I eat. We eat very simple foods. Just a quick story, out at my sister's house. She has a house out in the Hamptons where my wife and I got married, actually. And we occasionally stock food there that we want to snack on. And our peanuts out there are just roasted peanuts with
Mhm.
nothing on them. And at one point, one of our cousin's kids wanted a snack and she was like, "You got any peanuts?" And she gave them, those were the only kind in the house. She gave it to that kid. That kid almost threw up and hasn't had a peanut since, probably. So much did she want
Oh my
the
god.
oil and the salt that
Mm,
her body freaked out and she practically had a fit,
I
you
love
know?
that. I
Yeah.
love those plain roasted peanuts. Those are amazing.
Yeah.
I get both kinds, but I love the plain ones sometimes. I'm just like, and it's really nice to go like, "That's it. That's what a peanut tastes like." You may not have known.
Yeah, and you may think you like peanuts, you actually like salt. You may think
Mm,
you like coffee, you actually like milk and sugar. Like, that goes across the board for a lot of people without them even knowing it, you know?
yeah. Do you like sweet potatoes? I do. Now picture sweet potatoes.
Mm.
9 out of 10 people are picturing this tray with melted cinnamon and a marshmallow. You know the ones I'm talking about? You
Yeah,
know
oh
those
god.
Thanksgiving sweet potatoes? Oh, I love sweet
Wow.
potatoes. It's like, do you? Because
Yeah.
it seems like you're trying to like, "Oh, you know what I like? Brussels sprouts." Let me
Mm.
guess. Let me guess. You ever
Eh,
order Brussels sprouts in a restaurant?
with
Like
honey, Junior.
Yeah,
Ah,
just a cup of
um,
hot water.
well, we should wrap this up. We already talked about the outrageously great poster for it. Let me just look very quickly if there's a tagline. I don't think. Oh, here's a tagline I found. Starving for a great movie, question mark.
Okay. I'm not gonna give it a I'm not giving that an F. I give that a
Yeah,
B I'll give that a B minus.
yeah. Um, guess who's wasting away? WAISTING, question
No
mark.
thanks.
Terrible.
Yeah, don't like it.
All his life he wanted a woman, but he needed a jelly donut. These are terrible.
My god, that's really bad.
So
Well, how did
yes,
that
starving for a great movie kind of
yeah,
says it.
now it's starting to look pretty good. I have to
Yeah.
say, you look at that poster
Yeah.
with the list of things do not eat,
Yeah.
look at that poster and say, "Well, how did this movie not do well?" I mean,
Yeah.
who who in their right mind
Would you
would
like to
take
look like this coming out of the movie?
who would take their hard-earned movie money and
Yeah.
their 1 or 2 nights off of work and go see this? Uh, Dom DeLuise, I have to say, does all of his funny stuff.
Dave, that poster is a good it shows what a great actor he is. He cries during that scene.
He cries in several scenes,
He
yeah.
cries in several scenes.
Yeah.
But in this one it's actually comedic. He starts
Mhm.
crying as she lists all of the foods that he loves that he can no longer eat. Just very funny. You mentioned people wanting to give their movie money. You know what Fatso was up against? Ordinary People, Cheech and Chong's next movie, Urban Cowboy, Dress to Kill, The Blue Lagoon,
Didn't stand a chance.
didn't stand a chance. American Gigolo, Caddyshack, Airplane,
Oh my
Dave,
god.
The Blues Brothers. These were comedies at the time. Airplane, Caddyshack, The Blues Brothers, Where the Buffalo Roam, which was actually, a Hunter Thompson film. Seems like old times. So there were a lot of choices in 1980 for your comedy dollar and your movie dollar in general. So it's kind of easy to see. They made much better movies back then than they do
Yeah.
today.
No way I was going to see Fatso on that weekend. No way.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm very glad. I believe I found it the way you and I found so many great things on PBS as a kid.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So good. And a
Yeah.
great, all this talk about female directors because of Greta Gerwig and Barbie, and how already the power brokers and the gatekeepers of Hollywood are trying to paint the success of Barbie as a one-off, as a freak occurrence. And it's like the same thing that happened forever to female directors since Ida Lupino. Anne Bancroft never made another film. Maybe it left a bad taste in her mouth because, it didn't find its audience. But for whatever reason, it's always been hard for a female director to get a movie made.
Yeah, there's definitely some backlash that like women filmmakers and even women-centric films are hurting the film industry. It's like, my God, we have to drag these people kicking and screaming into the present.
Yeah.
It's unreal.
So in closing, if you want to discover a great little offbeat film from 1980 that eats like a 1970s meal, check out Fatso. If you like Dom DeLuise in anything, you'll love him in this. He's so good. He carries it.
Yeah. That's worth it. Like, if you like Dom DeLuise, go see Dom DeLuise be an actor for 2 hours. He's terrific.
He's terrific. Yeah.
Yeah. But don't go hungry.
No.
It really doesn't matter.
It really doesn't matter. You're going to eat afterwards regardless.
There are some really nice phone calls to order food. There's an ordering of food for the party, the food for their breakdown when they call and get all the food delivered for when they for their moment of weakness. There's the Chinese food. People on the phone with people, and you just know the person on the other end had that little short pencil and a little pad and was getting all of it, even though you're all over the shop. Oh, and you better throw in another. Oh, and let me get a spiral. Oh, and a couple of them cannolis, and you got the white stuff? Give me the green stuff.
Yeah, they never messed up orders.
They
back
never messed it. And now you're online, like, check this box.
Yeah.
And check this box.
And how often do they forget something or screw it up?
And then you don't get what you asked for.
Yeah. It'd be a good 1-2 punch also if you want to do a double feature with Moonstruck.
That's true. Yeah, do that. We should get a third in there for the neighborhood. That's a good neighborhood. That's a pretty respectable neighborhood.
The Pope of Greenwich Village.
That works. There you go.
For the neighborhood.
Boom.
Boom. All right, buddy.
Moonstruck Fatso Pope.
Yeah.
Hollis and Dave would like to thank you for enjoying Pop Culture Graveyard.